Hello, my friends, and welcome to Aeronautica. Not to be confused with Subnautica, because that game's actually, good. Ooh, right off the bat, huh? No, but that's not being entirely fair. I don't think Aeronautica is horrendously awful. It's just not even remotely my cup of tea. Anyways, Aeronautica is a game that I believe the developers themselves requested me to play, if I remember correctly. And to be quite honest with you, assuming that I'm remembering that right and that is true, I have no idea what they thought they were going to accomplish from this. Free press, maybe, but I don't think there's anything about my channel that screams flight simulators. But, here we are, I suppose. Now, to get something out of the way right off the bat, I have never been a flight simulator guy. I've always looked at them and thought, why in the hell would people spend so much time doing what basically amounts to, well, nothing? And unsurprisingly, Aeronautica has, well, pretty much all of the problems that I think flight simulators have, and then some. But I think the thing that you need to understand is that I am far from being opposed to playing games where you fly planes, helicopters, drive cars, etc. I really enjoy the Battlefield franchise, as a lot of you know, and in that game I'm a big fan of flying around helicopters and jets. So it's not like I don't like flying aircraft. I think flying aircraft is a ton of fun. But when I'm flying those aircraft, I would like there to be some sort of substance to gameplay, and when it comes to Aeronautica, well, there just isn't a whole lot here. I would say 99% of the gameplay consists of this. Yeah, did that feel like it dragged on for maybe a little bit too long? Maybe you thought it was an editing error? No, that's because what you just saw and what you're seeing right now is pretty much the entirety of this game. You go from one place to another place in a straight line. Nothing stops you, nothing hinders you, you just go forwards. And the thing about this gameplay loop is that I just don't see how something like this is even really that much different from, I don't know, Souls RNG? In that game, you click a button, you walk away, and the game plays itself, and then you come back and you've potentially unlocked another aura. And in this game, there's a bit more setup, and there's a bit more at the end of it, but the in-between is the same. You start on the runway, start your engine, take off, point yourself towards the objective marker, and now it's Souls RNG time. You can walk away, you can go do something else. In fact, while I'm recording this voiceover for the video, I'm currently gathering the rest of the footage that I need. No joke. So I suppose, in a sense, if you don't like playing games and you're a big fan of Souls RNG, this game had a hell of a lot more effort put into it than that game, but has around the same gameplay loop. So if for some reason you're a Souls player and you're still around here, I don't know how, because I've done nothing but trash on you ever since I talked about that game, please go play this instead. Anyways, I said the game had other problems aside from the basically non-existent gameplay loop, and that's what I want to talk about right now. I think the most notable is that there are some other missions that aren't just flying in a straight line, but a lot of these missions are just flying in a straight line with extra steps. For example, if you go to the jobs board, you can pick a delivery mission, which involves you starting at one airport and then driving to the next airport and stopping, and you win. You can also pick to do a charter flight, which involves starting in an airport, taking off, flying to another airport, and stopping. You win. So now you're probably starting to see the sort of questionable nature of this game. Now, yes, you could probably make the argument that the modifiers on these different jobs can be different depending on the times of the year, which I think is a pretty cool system. Basically, if there are holidays going on or there's some sort of world event that the game has decided, it'll make the rewards because of supply and demand more or less depending on the job. So that's all well and good, but then I have to draw the question of, if both of these do the exact same thing, the mission is literally an exact clone, well, why did you even need two of them? Frankly, I just couldn't tell you. In terms of other missions you can do, I ran into a pretty fatal flaw when it came to the circuit missions. These involve you taking off with a plane and then flying a circuit around an airport and then re-landing. The problem with these missions is that unlike every single racing game ever which uses similar waypoint systems, there's no way to see where the next waypoint is going to be until you've hit the current active waypoint. What this leads to is sometimes you'll need to turn in order to hit the next waypoint, but you're never going to know when that turn is coming up. And because the aircraft that you're flying likely doesn't have the turn radius to just turn on a dime, you need to know that turn's coming up so you can prepare for it ahead of time. This is something that you just can't do, and it leads to this really awkward moment where you're flying in circles over and over again trying to hit this waypoint when you should have just been able to turn left ahead of time and hit the waypoint right away. Now, I will say that I think the game did a good job when it comes to managing its currency systems, and so I have a lot of appreciation for that. What I mean by that is the currencies are split into a few different categories. You have the WP points, and then you just have your standard money. Now, WP is what you use to unlock new vehicles, get the training to use new vehicles, etc. And money is the stuff that you're going to be using to refuel your aircraft, repair your aircraft, etc. And the reason that I think this is a really good system is it makes it so that way when you're playing the game, it doesn't feel like you're constantly having diminishing returns. It never feels like you're actively losing money, it always feels like you're progressing as long as you're not constantly crashing or anything. And it makes it so that way your progression doesn't directly get hindered if you decide to do something like a free flight without taking on a job directly. Overall, I just think the system's really good, but unfortunately, it immediately faceplants when it comes to getting training in order to get new aircraft. Initially, right off the bat, I thought the system was really cool. It adds an actual progression system so that way the game isn't just fly in a straight line all the time with no real objectives. If everything was unlocked from the start, then there really wouldn't be a point to playing this game for a lot of people, myself included. Not that there's really a point anyway, but the point is to unlock new, sort of different aircraft, you need to get the training in order to do so. And in order to get that training, you need to fly to a specific airport, and then when you get to that airport, you can pay a certain amount of WP in order to do a training mission, and once you have the license for that aircraft, you can buy and use those types of aircraft. And all of these higher level aircraft have different types of missions that you can do. That's all cool and all until this. Yeah, so somebody decided that it would be an absolutely ingenious idea to not only make it cost money in order to start this training exercise, but also a required number of flight hours in a specific aircraft. Good God, why? Why did you do this? Was this just designed to waste my time? Well, good job, you succeeded, because this ruined the whole game. No joke, this ruined the game. I wanted to play this game to the point where I would get cool aircraft and have more fun with it. But I just cannot reasonably force myself to do that when something like this exists. If it already has a wall where you need to get a certain amount of money in order to use it, and this wall is stopping you from buying other aircraft because you need to save enough money to do so, why the hell is there also an artificial timer attached? And not only that, an hour? You want me to fly back and forth in straight lines for an hour just so I can get access to helicopters? What the fuck? I'm just like dumbfounded on how anybody could have thought that this was a good idea. And you know what? Sure, if you really, really wanted to have these timers, which for the record, you shouldn't, but if you really wanted to, why the hell is it linked to specific aircraft that you need to have flight hours in? Like, if I'm later down the line and I don't enjoy using a specific aircraft, but I want to unlock a different one, you're going to force me to play an hour or more with an aircraft that I don't like? What the hell? Seriously, this is just such an unbelievably boneheaded decision. I cannot wrap my head around it whatsoever. And you know what? I'm coming back later. I said I was recording that initial voiceover when I was playing the game. Well, now I'm coming back after the fact. I did put the time in. I went and unlocked the helicopter class, which is the thing that I really wanted to unlock. I love flying helicopters in games. And you know what was the most astounding part? I actually started to have a really good time playing the game. Yeah, seriously. The helicopter training mission requires you to get a helicopter and land it at specific airports, and one of the areas that it wants you to land on was an oil rig, which gives you a pretty tight area to land. It felt like a legitimate challenge to try to put my helicopter down on this landing pad, and when I did, it felt awesome. Not only that, but when I finished up the training exercise and bought a helicopter, I had a new set of missions called Search and Rescue, which doesn't directly give you a waypoint, but gives you a little indicator of distance, basically playing a game of hot and cold with where the people are. Eventually, you find the group of people that need to be rescued, you touch down your helicopter, pick them up, and then bring them to the nearest hospital, which again involves you landing on a pretty tight landing zone. It felt fun to grapple with the controls of the helicopters and try to make them work in these more confined spaces instead of, just going in a straight goddamn line all the time. So I just have to wonder if when I booted the game and I saw, hey, I can unlock helicopters, and I got enough money to unlock the helicopters and didn't have to mindlessly fly around for an hour with planes that I don't want to use just so I could unlock the ability to use something that I actually enjoy. I don't get it. Game developers, if you're seeing this, remove these timers, please, for the love of God. It's already behind a WP wall. You don't need these timers, and it's going to make people like me potentially just drop the game before they get anywhere because they don't want to fly straight back and forth for an hour. Whatever, we gotta move on. Now, overall, I think the most interesting and by proxy entertaining part of playing this game was being able to sort of survey the landscape that the developers have created here, which is this massive world that honestly kind of blows my mind that they're able to have something this large on Roblox. And also the ability to see all of these other players that are also flying around. This does take a bit of a downwards turn because, unfortunately, I assume because of unpatchable Roblox jank, go figure, the planes that other people are flying have a tendency of jittering around and teleporting, which sort of just totally nukes the immersion and is just really, really lame. Like, look at this. This sucks. No way around it. I know the developers probably can't do anything about that, and that really sucks. It's one of those Roblox problems, but it's just such a damn shame. On the topic of immersion, it's these kinds of games where I really, really expect them to sort of go balls to the walls with that kind of stuff, and I almost feel like they kinda didn't here, and I'm not sure why, because I think it does take away from the game. What I mean when I say that is that when it comes to your aircraft taking off, landing, and interacting with the environment, it feels very Roblox. It seems like the game wants you to sort of be immersed in the world. So if you're gonna take off from a runway, then you need to taxi to the runway and then take off. But what you'll learn very quickly early on is that there's not really any penalty for completely ignoring the rules of the world and just going in a straight line. If you're going to land and you overshoot and fly off into the forest, well, it's a-okay, you're just fine. Back up and taxi to the rest of the airfield. It's not like you just flew off the runway or anything, don't worry about it. If you're taking off and you don't really feel like taxiing all the way to the runway, just go across the grass. And it's moments like this where I just sort of scratch my head and I'm like, why would they go through all of this effort to try to immerse the player and then throw it all out the window when I've got my plane just tearing across the grass of the airport, ignoring basically every possible logical conclusion that you could draw here. I mean, just look at this clip. Does this look like the kind of physics that you should be having in a mostly realistic flight simulator game? My plane should have exploded. My plane's wings should have been like shredded and torn off. And the funny thing is that you can have damage and such applied to your plane. There was this one moment towards the end of my play session where I was really high up above the airport and I was like, well, I don't really give a shit. I'm just gonna go straight down. What's the worst that could happen? Well, the worst that could happen was going massively over speed and then having my engine explode. I then had to drift my way down with no engine, somehow managing to barely land on the runway, which happened to be close enough to complete my job. This sat with me because it was completely unexpected and out of left field, but honestly, it shouldn't have been. I should have expected this to happen, but after ramming into trees and going straight across lawns, I just didn't expect any sort of realism at all. There was another moment where I just like clipped straight through a fence. I rammed into it at really fast speeds and it just didn't care. And like, I understand that the game developers probably have the same problem that a lot of these flight sim devs have, where idiots will go onto games like this and try to simulate terrorist attacks and stupid nonsense. It's even name dropped at the very beginning of the game in the code of conduct to not do stupid crap like that. But the end all be all is, if I'm flying an aircraft and I slam into something, that shit's gonna break. It's not just gonna bounce off. And when it does, it really, really takes you out of it. Overall, I think if some of the sort of barriers to entry when it comes to blocking you from getting aircraft that you might otherwise want to unlock were removed, and there were some more variations, especially early game when it came to missions that you could pick, I think that this game wouldn't be so bad. It's certainly not my cup of tea, but it's clear that a lot of effort went into it, and I don't want to take that away from the people behind it. So I suppose my only hope is that things can improve from here. With that though, I'm wrapping up here. I don't have much else to say. If you enjoyed the video, you can of course leave a like and subscribe. If you didn't, don't. And with all that being said, have a wonderful day, night, wherever you are, and I'll see you guys next time.